For Baseball Rules Academy, I'm Chris Welsh, and this is the unofficial interpretation of the Major League Baseball rule changes for 2020, the regular season and the postseason. So let's get to it. The first change that we'll talk about is the position players as pitchers. Any player now can appear as a pitcher. There are none of the requirements that used to be where you had to be extra innings or there had to be a 6-run rule in place. But of course, that player to be a pitcher must be on that evening's lineup card. A wet rag for pitchers. I think this is kind of an interesting rule right here because it's the first time that baseball has really acknowledged the fact that you got to have a little moisture on your hand to throw the baseball. So pitchers are now permitted to carry a wet rag in their back pocket. This is in lieu of licking their fingers. Water is the only thing that can be on that rag, and they cannot access that rag while on the pitching rubber. So they have to show the umpires that they're actually accessing the rag to get some moisture and then wiping it off before they apply it on the baseball. And of course, you can't apply it directly to the ball. The umpires may check that rag at any point. That ought to be interesting as we go forward and see how that is interpreted by different umpiring crews. The second step, doesn't it seem like every time there's a new rule out there that can get a nickname, like the Buster Posey rule, where that was a collision at home plate? Well, this one you could call the Marcus Stroman rule because it's now going to put a limit on what pitchers can do as far as lifting their stride leg up, touching the ground, lifting it up again, touching the ground, and so on. Umpires are going to have to use their judgment to determine whether it is a step or a touch. So a pitcher may not take a second step toward home plate with either foot or otherwise reset his pivot foot in his delivery of the pitch. So if he does this and the umpire says, that's a step, not a touch, it's going to be a balk if there's a runner on base. If there's no runners on base, then it is an illegal pitch. So that is a second step. It's going to affect probably about 15 or so pitchers out there in the major leagues this year, and they're going to have to get used to it. Umpires will use judgment call there. Intentionally pitch a pitch at a batter. This is the hot spot right here, and there's a lot of Major League umpires that are going to be under the gun because Major League Baseball wants this point of emphasis to be made. They're not going to tolerate anybody throwing at a hitter's head any longer. So the umpire, if he feels like this is an intentional pitch, he can expel the pitcher or the manager and from the game, or he can warn the pitcher and the manager of both teams. That warning is in effect right now, of course, and team personnel may not run out onto the field to argue or anything to do with that ejection. What you're going to see, however, is this, and this is what Major League Baseball wants, is that if you've got an umpire behind home plate and here comes a close pitch in there to a hitter, and there's a question as to whether it could be intentional or not, they're going to convene the umpires in a huddle, and they're going to kind of take a vote. What do you think? What do you think? Do you see this? Remember that umpires now will have more information than ever before as to the history of pitchers versus hitters and different teams that may be rubbing each other the wrong way. But you're going to see some ejections made after the umpire huddle when they kind of come to a consensus. It'll be interesting, but I think what it does is takes young umpires, especially off the hot spot, to make a tough decision where they may be intimidated by a manager or a team or a pitcher one way or the other, and you're going to make it kind of a committee from now on, and I think that's a good way to handle that because intentionally throwing at another hitter's head is just not something you want in Major League Baseball or any level of baseball. Mound visits. Well, last year it was changed from 6 visits to 5, though again this year will be 5 mound visits per game. That 5 mound visits per game includes trips to the mound by the catcher, an infielder or an outfielder as you come in, if you want to come all the way in from the outfield, or of course a coach or a manager. So if a manager or coach crosses the foul line on his way to the mound after his team has already had those 5 mound visits, he must make a pitching change unless the pitcher has not satisfied the 3-batter minimum. And the substitute batter exception does not apply to a pitcher who has not satisfied the 3-batter minimum. And that means that if you have a pinch hitter and the pitcher has still not faced 3 batters, well, he's got to face that pinch hitter. We're going to get into the 3-batter minimum in another video. The designated hitter, this is an easy one. You've seen it in the American League. Now you're going to see it everywhere. Every club has the DH this year. It is going to be for the regular season and the postseason, and has not been officially determined yet for 2021. Major League Baseball did make a change in the definition part of the rule book, and they have redefined what is a foul tip. It used to be that a foul tip would be a ball that came off sharp and direct from the bat right into the catcher's glove or the catcher's hand. Now they've expanded that to include a foul ball that comes off the bat, sharp and direct from the bat to the catcher. It can go off his chest protector and then grab by the catcher before it hits the ground. That will be a foul tip. If it goes off his shin guard or his leg or his shoulder, anywhere like that, as long as it doesn't touch the ground, it's going to be a foul tip and not a foul ball. And of course, as a foul tip, the ball stays in play and you can run on that if you're a runner on base. So it doesn't really change the way you look at a third strike legally caught, but because you've redefined what a foul tip versus a foul ball is, it does have an effect on it right there. So a third strike legally caught means that it's in the catcher's glove before the ball touches the ground. It can bounce off the catcher's shin guard, his chest protector, his mask, anywhere else. It's not a legal catch if it lodges in the clothing or paraphernalia of the catcher. And it's not legal if it touches the umpire and then is caught by the catcher on the rebound. Major League Baseball also changed in the definition part of the rule book, the definition of a foul tip. It used to be that a foul tip would have to go sharp and direct from the bat to the catcher's glove or his hand. It couldn't bounce off his chest protectors, mask, shin guards, etc. Now it can do that. So a foul tip is not a foul tip unless it's caught before it touches the ground, and any foul tip is a strike, and the ball remains in play. That's important for base runners to know, because a foul tip that is caught before it touches the ground is going to be in play, and you can run on that if you want. Of course, if it touches the ground, it turns into a foul ball. That is the change in definition. It doesn't change the definition of what third strike legally caught is, but it does, because you have implications now what a foul tip is. Doesn't have to go directly into the glove. It can bounce off his chest protector, his shin guard, his mask, anywhere else on the person of the catcher, but it cannot be caught in his clothing or any other part of the paraphernalia, and it cannot touch the umpire first. So this takes the umpire a little bit off the hot seat, because you can't look over a catcher and in real time figure out whether that ball actually hit the catcher's chest protector and then went into his glove, and they didn't want to make this a reviewable play. So I think this is a good rule. Makes it easier on the umpire. You're going to get a cleaner brand of baseball, and of course, fewer replay reviews, which is always good. The continuation of a suspended game. This is interesting because they're trying to get these games underway. You've got a 60-game season, and you want to make sure that any game you start, you try to finish as quickly as you can and as efficiently as you can. What this means is this. Previously, if any game that didn't go at least 4.5 innings for the home team winning or 5 innings with the visiting team winning, that it was basically a washed out game and you start the game from scratch. Now what happens is once a game begins and then it is called for weather before you get to that 5-inning official game mark, it is going to be washed out and then started up at the exact point it stops. So conceivably, you could have a pitcher go out there, throw one pitch, make the game started. Now the rain comes. It doesn't stop. They call the game. When they pick that game up, they're going to start it right there after one pitch in the ball game. And it mirrors now what has happened in the minor leagues. The reason it does, it never did that in the major leagues, was because of the gate that you have at the major leagues, and of course the implications for television and resetting that game again. I think it's a good rule. For BaseballRulesAcademy.com, I'm Chris Welsh.